Hello, Juno. I'm Ericka Lee, and welcome to Juno's Open House. I am so excited for this show today. We have an amazing special guest. I'm gonna introduce him in a quick second, but before we go there, I have to give kudos to every mother out there in Juneau and all of the rest of the world, and give you a big happy Mother's Day. Being a mother is not an easy job, but it's a really important one. So if you've tuned into this show, you know that we are doing a series on being a buyer and all the things that you need to go through. We've gone through making sure you're pre-qualified, having your down payment ready, what kind of loan you want to do, going through the inspection process, how to pick your realtor. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Bradley Perkins. He is a lawyer, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself. But every once in a while, you might want to pick a lawyer's brain when you're buying a house. We're about to do that today. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Bradley Perkins.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ericka, for having me on.
Yeah.
So, being a lawyer, I'm going to give you all the disclaimers before I even start answering questions or talking anything.
Hit us.
Yeah. So, first off, I am not a lawyer. I'm not registered to practice law in Alaska.
Okay.
I am registered to practice law in California and Hawaii.
Okay.
But I am not even currently on leave in Hawaii since I'm not practicing there. And also, I'm also not giving any legal advice today. I'm just going to answer some questions about real estate law. Thirdly, I'm not generally a real estate attorney, but I have practiced real estate law at various times in my career. I practiced a number of different kinds of law. I tend to specialize in patent and intellectual property law, corporate law, HR law, and things like that. But I did work for one of the largest developers in California for a number of years who developed a lot of Silicon Valley. So I did a lot of real estate law for him. And so I have worked in real estate law. And as I say, jack of all trades, master of none. So I do a lot of things. So I'll give you something, answer some questions and give you some thoughts about things. But my main advice is if you think you have a need for a lawyer, go find a real estate lawyer, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. So I'm just going to give you some thoughts and things like that, but you should not act upon anything I exactly say today. The best thing you can do is if I say something that you say, oh, wow, is go find a lawyer to go out and answer those questions. So mostly just to give you some thoughts and tickle your ideas that, oh, maybe I should go do something, but you should not act upon directly anything I say. Certainly do not make a decision about your legal future based on anything I say today. So because I don't want you coming and suing me or suing Ericka for legal advice in the show, because we're not giving legal advice today. So
that's right. That's right. That was excellent. Have you practiced that disclaimer?
Yeah. It's been my life giving legal disclaimers. So I have practiced law for over 35 years.
Okay.
All around, and I've been practicing law all around the United States, including also over in Bangkok. So we lived a lot of places, and Hawaii and all that. So okay, so now that's all said, let's talk about real estate law. What would you like to know?
Okay, so if you're buying a house, you, let's say in theory, have a realtor, and you should, because you don't have to pay for the realtor. So it's good to just go ahead and have a realtor. But when in the process do we need to talk to a lawyer?
So generally, you need to talk to a lawyer when something goes wrong.
Okay.
And how do you know when something goes wrong? Well, generally, assuming you have a realtor, the realtor will tell you something has gone wrong. Mm-hmm. That's kind of their job. That's why you have a realtor, because they will figure out something bad has happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, you might well figure that out also. But when things are no longer going smoothly, that's kind of like, something's gone wrong. And then you'll say, well, either the house is, you thought you had the house and you no longer have it, or just the thing's not going smoothly. The realtor will say, I think we need to talk to somebody about something like that. Or, and you're not going to want to hear this, or something's gone wrong with your relationship with the realtor. And you're thinking, wow, I'm getting screwed here, or whatever else. I may need to seek advice. And so, if you're feeling like things are not going well, I mean, first talk to your realtor. You're supposed to have that relationship with your realtor. But when things feel like you're not going well, think about
call a lawyer.
Yeah, think about finding a lawyer and do that. How do you find a lawyer? In
Well,
June.
before you move on,
Go.
one thing I will say is that we have great contracts in MLS, and they've been vetted by real estate lawyers here in the state of Alaska. So when I feel like the time to call a lawyer is when your seller or the two parties are not complying with that contract, and you cannot come to an agreement. That is when it's time to call in the big dogs like Brad or the people who are practicing. Not
yeah.
Brad. Don't call me.
Don't call me. But also, that's a good point. If you're buying a property and the other side does not want to use the standard MLS contract, then you probably need a lawyer.
Absolutely.
And if your realtor says, "Oh, it's okay, I'm okay with not using this contract," find another realtor. I mean, there's reasons those contracts have been vetted by everybody. And when I do deals, I also use those things. And if I'm, doing a rental agreement or something else, I look to those contracts because I know they've been looked at by the lawyers for the associations, and they are generally fair on both sides.
And it's true on the buyer's side as well. I've had buyers who would like to go outside of those forms, and you also need to go find a lawyer if you want to do something that's out there. And creative real estate is a lot of fun, but you need to make sure you're on your P's and Q's when you do it. Okay, now you talked about you practiced a whole bunch of types of law. Okay, so how do we choose a real estate lawyer? Are they lawyers that only practice real estate, or is it okay? Do you think it's okay if they practice jack of all trades?
Right. So that's interesting. One, this is a small market, and there's not a lot of lawyers who specialize, but I think there are some in town. I don't know the lawyers in town, to be honest with you. Since I moved here, I have not decided not to take the bar so far, despite pressing from my wife about go take the bar, because it takes 3 months. I got to go study again and all that. But from what I've seen in town, that a lot of lawyers practice a lot of different kinds of law.
Yeah.
So if you can't find one that practices law, that practices only real estate law, that's probably a better bet to do that. Your realtor is probably your best source of finding a lawyer. Find somebody they know that does that. But this town also being small, lawyers are likely to have conflicts. So it is very likely that depending who's the other side, they may find the lawyer may know the seller of the property and say, "Oh, I can't take your case," and all that. And so it may not be surprising you may end up with a lawyer up in Anchorage.
Yeah.
And so it can be pretty common that it'll be, "I can't find anyone in town." That's okay. It may be okay to get somebody up in Anchorage if you can't find somebody in town. So again,
and they often have a fresh perspective as well.
That's right also. And there are services to find lawyers, and there is both Yelp has looks at lawyers, and there are services that do look at lawyers too if you can't find someone that way. So.
Yeah.
So don't call me, because I don't know the lawyers in town, and I'm not going to be able to help you find anybody. So.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to, I haven't asked them to say this, so I hope they're okay, but I think Baxter, Bruce, and Sullivan is fantastic, as well as, I probably don't say his last name correctly, but Todd Araujo. They've been fantastic for me and really responsive, and that's a hard thing with a lawyer because they're so busy here in town. There's a really high demand for them. Okay, we're gonna put Brad in the hot seat. We're gonna ask him quite a few questions, and let's see what kind of answers we get back. So let's say I'm a buyer. I've made an offer on a house, and the seller doesn't want to sell the house to me anymore. What do I do?
Well, so first of all, most real estate things are covered by contract. And so you have to look to see what contracts have been signed. And then that usually spells out what's going on between the contracts. Where things fall outside of contracts, we are a common law country, meaning that we go back and look to what the common law says. And common law just means what has been done historically. And so we go back to look and see what it does. And real estate law is very old. It falls back to the English common law system, and there simply are rules about how real estate goes. And when we go to law school, real estate law is a full year course. We get all these traditions about how real estate's transferred and things like that. So again, if things are going bad when something's going on, your realtor will tell you, first we look at the contract. If the contract says that they're not allowed to do that, or there's damages or what happens, you find that first. If for some reason that's not, that it's outside that, then you would find a lawyer and says what the common law does, whether there's traditions or whatever else. Generally though, there'll be a contract for the sale of the house, and it'll spell out what happens, if he's allowed to do that or not, if the seller, he or she's allowed to do that, and if they're not, then it'll say what the damages are for that. But generally, in most contracts, there are damages in terms of the court wants to give you monetary damages. But real estate is a special thing, right? Because there isn't always damages because there's only one piece of property.
Yeah.
So the court will often will try to find a way maybe to award you the property. And sellers often are not really allowed to back out. It's very complicated. So
I have a question. So in our contract, if the seller is at fault, there's so many variables here. So I'm speaking very generally. However, if the seller is at fault, the buyer gets their earnest money back, okay? But it also says in our contract that you cannot sue for specific performance or...
Right, so the contracts will commonly say is that you cannot force them in equity to give you the property, right?
Can you still sue them though?
Well, again, it's whatever's in the contract. So and I don't know what the Alaska contracts say, and so it may well say that you cannot force them to give you the property.
Yeah.
So absent that, though, if the contract fails entirely, because contracts can completely fail because of other reasons, and you go back to common law, is that the common law might well say that the other side has to give you the property. Because there is no adequate damages because there's only one house or one piece of property. And so if the seller backs out for not a good reason, and you want that piece of property, and you're willing to pay for it, the common law would say that you're entitled to that property.
Okay.
But contract law probably has in there all kinds of clauses saying they don't have to do that as long as they reimburse you for the damages. And there's all kinds of things about detrimental reliance. What harm are you suffering because you relied on getting that house? Did you do things that now put you in a terrible position because they backed out, or did you not really do anything? I mean, are you getting everything back and you really didn't, whatever. Very complicated.
Yeah.
You need a lawyer to get you through all that if that happens.
Absolutely.
Besides the fact you're probably very sad. You probably fell in love with that house and you're all excited about that. Your kids are going to play in the swing set in the backyard.
Emotional damages are real too.
Right, and I'll guarantee the contract says you're not getting any of that. So.
No, yeah, I don't think that's available. But
right.
Okay, so here's something very interesting. What are your thoughts on early occupancy? And just to give a definition of early occupancy is that, let's say your closing date is May 30th, but you're going to be homeless on May 15th. You're asking the sellers for permission to go ahead and move in on May 15th, 15 days before closing. So that is what early occupancy is. Now, what is your legal opinion of early occupancy?
Yeah, so there's a whole area. So we'll talk about this one, then I also think we should talk about bailments. And so
yes.
Early occupancy or letting the seller stay in the house while you now own it. Yes, really that all falls in landlord-tenant, because suddenly you're going to be, if you're going to go in the house early before you actually own it, now you're going to really become the tenant. And the previous owner is becoming a landlord. So now you're suddenly becoming a landlord-tenant relationship. The other way is, let's say that you complete the sale of the house, but the previous owner wants to stay in it for a month or two because they've got nowhere to go. Now you're the landlord and they're the tenant. So now you're taking the relationship instead of a buyer and seller, you're now becoming landlord-tenant. So just be aware that you're now imposing a new relationship. And I think all of us probably at one time or another have been in a landlord-tenant relationship. And, it's one thing to be a buyer and a seller because you can stay quite often arm's length away, right? Through escrow agents and title companies and realtors, but you probably don't know much about your seller, right? The person is selling you the house, and they don't know much about you as the buyer.
Yeah.
But now suddenly you have a landlord-tenant relationship, right? And so, so now that you're moving in there and the house, let's say you're the buyer, you're getting in there early, escrow has not closed. That guy who seemed nice, you didn't know much about, is a terrible landlord. Yeah. He's visiting the house all the time. What are you doing, painting, or what are you doing this? You haven't bought the house yet, and he could be a terrible landlord.
Yeah.
And so, and let's say things fall out of escrow. I don't know, and suddenly now...
It's like the worst nightmare ever.
Right. And so I would, really, personally, I've seen that go bad. And like I said, you can end with a landlord you know nothing about, And if it goes the other way and you let somebody stay in your house, even though they've lived there for 30 years, as they start leaving, they start putting holes in walls accidentally or whatever, and it turns out they're terrible tenants. Could be fine, could be not. Just be very wary of being the nice guy and say, well, sure, stay in the house for another 2 months. I get you need to do that. We're okay where they are. And while you did all the home inspections that we talked about last week.
All those contingencies are over.
Yeah, they're all gone now. And suddenly now you find out that they've blown out some circuits, or maybe they took things that you didn't think they were going to take.
Yeah.
So just be very wary.
So I am not a fan of early occupancy, and with the way our industry is going right now, everything's moving really, really fast, and our title company and appraisers are having a really hard time catching up. So early occupancy is commonly happening now because people are putting offers on the house, it gets accepted, they put in their notice at their apartment, and suddenly they're homeless because the deal hasn't closed yet. So it is a great tool to have. It's needed sometimes, but the reason I am not a fan of it is because what happens to negotiations? Like, I lose my upper hand when I'm negotiating for my client when they're already living there and the seller knows they don't want to move, and also, there's an understanding that you're taking that property as is. So when you haven't closed on the property yet, you have a final walkthrough. You go to that final walkthrough, and let's say the stove is missing or suddenly there are holes in the walls, you can still say, hold up now, this is not what we agreed to, this needs to be fixed. You still have an opportunity to negotiate, but when you are doing early occupancy, you're kind of letting all of that go, all of that leverage go. So in my humble opinion, if you are capable of not doing early occupancy, don't do it. Go ahead and wait it out. Having said that, I haven't had any disasters happen. It happens quite often, but I see a lot of potential. So
just be wary.
Yeah, be wary. So you mentioned bailments.
Yeah. So bailment, for those, you probably have heard the term. A lot of people don't know what it means. It refers to the idea of when you hold somebody else's goods. It's called a bailment. And if you're the one holding somebody else's goods, you're the bailor, and the person's goods you're holding is the bailee. Now, how does that come up in the context of buying and selling houses? It comes up in the sense that if when you get a house, if the previous owner's stuff is still there in the house because they've left it there, either intentionally or unintentionally, then you become the bailor of their things. And if you're buying a house and you ask them, gee, can I put my RV on the property, or can I move some of my stuff into the garage or whatever because I have nowhere to put it? I'm not moving in, but I have nowhere to put the stuff. I don't want to rent a storage unit or whatever else. Can I put it in the garage or whatever while I'm moving in? Then you become the bailee and the bailor. And so there's a whole other area of law regarding bailments and who's responsible and what duty of care do you have according to being a bailor. And so it depends on you who's benefiting from the bailment and whether you're paying for the bailment, blah, 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 blah. And the danger is that, if, for example, you're buying the house and you ask the landlord, you ask the seller, gee, can I put my RV or my boat in the garage or on the property, and the guy says, yeah, I guess so, but you haven't bought the house here or whatever else. And he says, yes. And you drive and put your expensive RV or you put the boat in the garage or whatever else. Let's see. So now that's a bailment for the benefit of you, not them, right? So let's say something happens though, and the RV gets, stolen or the boat gets damaged or whatever else. Is the seller responsible for your boat or RV? No. Because it was for your benefit, not him. You didn't pay him for it. He owes you a very minimal duty of care. Now, if he purposely damages it, well, sure, that he probably has some right to it. But just be very careful about what you do with that, right? And conversely, if the house you sell, you buy this house from the guy, and the guy says, hey, I want to leave. I have a bunch of stuff in the garage here. I can't move it for a month. I'm moving somewhere. But Canada's locked up right now because of COVID, so I can't really put it on the barge yet. Can I keep it here? And you go, well, sure, you can keep it in the garage for 2 months and like that. What duty of care do you owe to his thing? Well, you probably do owe some care. Maybe not, not perfect care, but you probably realize you're taking on some obligation. And so you probably have something to make sure it stays dry or something.
But more care than the other situation?
No, but realize it's not none.
Okay.
Okay, it's not none, right? It's not more than that, but it's not zero, because you did agree to do it. So just think about all these different things when you take obligations on. That there's this whole area of law, and there's common law, and there isn't a lot. Unlike real estate law, there's not as much written law with regard to bailment, especially ones like this, and so it's very hard to figure out what's going on. So just be wary when you agree to take somebody else's goods, or you stick somebody else with your goods, is that it's not always clear what your responsibilities are, and you take responsibility, or they're not taking responsibility for your goods.
Yeah.
So, law of bailment. Again, a lawyer can tell you what risk you take in that, and whether your insurance covers it, or whether their insurance covers your stuff, and it probably doesn't. And so you're probably not covered by their insurance, and your insurance probably isn't going to cover their stuff.
Yeah. And this may be a little off subject, but the thing that I see most often is people not moving out all of the way. They left a whole bunch of junk.
Right, and so that's a good one.
That could be of value.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a good one also. So let's say that somebody theoretically moved out, and landlords have this problem all the time. But let's say you bought the house, right? And so they've moved out, and you've done the walkthrough, whatever else, and you discover they left a bunch of stuff in the basement. So what is your obligation to that? Well, it's probably not none, because it might have been inadvertent or whatever else. But I think you would, call the realtor for the other side and say, hey, or have your realtor call the realtor and say, we found all this stuff, can you contact the seller? And if they, but until that's done, I think you owe you owe some duty of care to it, right? You can't just throw it in the trash, if it's clearly trash, that's trash. But if you've made a good faith effort to get rid of it, it's not. I think at some point, if you've made some effort to do it, you probably at that point can either sell it, keep it, do something else with it.
But what is a good amount of time? You're trying to move in, and all their stuff is taking up space.
What you would want to do is what you would say a reasonable person would do it as a jury of your peers would determine if it ever went to court, or as a reasonable judge would look at it.
Okay.
So, and that's not you, it's what you would think the reasonable person in the community. So you always want to think back, if somebody sued, and either a judge or somebody on a jury would look at it and would think, what would they say? Or if you were on the jury and this case came before you, would you think your conduct would be reasonable by the community standards in Juneau?
Jeez. So, it'd be really nice, just to cover your tail if you're in this situation, to document everything that you've done.
Take pictures and do all this. Yeah, one problem of going to law school is you spend your life looking at things going, okay, what would happen if this happened, and what would happen if it went to court and all that. It really is painful to be married to an attorney, because you just spend your life, because I always think of worst case scenarios. I think, well, geez, if this goes wrong, what would happen here and all that. So, and being married to a pastor, she always goes, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure they never meant to do that. I'm sure this won't go bad. I'm sure this will be good. And I'm always going, I'm sure this is going to go bad.
Goodness. How do you guys find a middle?
That is true. That's true. And my first wife, who passed away in '99, we were both lawyers. And so we lived our life with it always going to go bad. So,
it's always going to go bad.
So the fact that the second one was a pastor, we at least moderate each other. So.
Okay. You guys meet in the middle somewhere.
Meet in the middle somewhere.
That's good. Okay. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about deed restrictions and, how responsible you are to adhere to them.
Oh, yeah. Well, CC&Rs, I learned in law school. It's covenants running with the land, or if you get a condo, all the rules and restrictions that go with them. And, certainly if you have a realtor and you're buying a house or a condo, that they're going to make sure you're very clear on what goes in there. I think everyone knows who buys a condo, there are restrictions that go with it.
It's
right?
very clear.
Very clear.
You have to review them. And before you move on, deed restrictions or the CC&Rs, when you purchase a house, a neighborhood, if it's a planned development, which we do have some here in Juneau, the builder has put some rules on the houses, like you can't paint your house pink, or you cannot have more than one ugly car in the drive, not ugly, but a piece of junk in the driveway, or things of that nature. And they can make up whatever they want. So it's good to go ahead and review those things. And another thing, I'm going to cut you loose, but here in Juneau, a lot of those have expired.
Oh, okay.
But your neighbors want you to adhere to it. What is your responsibility to that?
Yeah, and Alaska's certainly one of those states where everyone is, a cowboy, right? I mean,
Yes.
we're about independent everything. And so that's a good question. What's on there? Certainly, your realtor would probably know what goes with what neighborhoods and things like that. Places that are more, what I want to say, more
Relaxed,
liberal,
yeah.
more liberal.
Okay.
That would have more of those. California has a lot of, things that run with land and things like that. So whatever. But certainly when you're looking at a piece of property, your realtor should be able to tell you what runs with this, neighborhood, what's in the neighborhood and things like that. So you want to know that. A good way to tell that, though, when you're driving in the neighborhood, do the houses all look alike, right? And is there a pink house in the neighborhood? Because if you see a pink house, you're pretty sure that there's not probably things like that running with that on there and things like that. And to find out what there are on there and find out whether you're going to have a problem with that, I mean, it is nice to be in a neighborhood. The houses all are all, tan color or whatever else.
It's just your taste. It's just whatever it is that you like.
Right, and just so you know what you're going to be up against, or if you want to be able to do interesting things with your house. And then you have to go through, you look at those and find what's on there. But, some people really are chafe against things like, if you want to plant certain plants or trees and things like that. And in Juneau, being not that old of a community, they probably don't have things like trees and things like that. But many communities have things with regard to the trees. You can't cut trees down. You can't do this, or you can't plant certain kind of trees. Very common in older communities that there are all kinds of restrictions. Or there's also their houses. In many neighborhoods, they have houses that are that you can't change houses because of heritage laws and things like that. Do we have some of that in this community?
Well, I had a client who wanted to put a structure, like a mother-in-law apartment, on the front side of his house.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It was allowed by the city.
Oh, yeah.
But he got some really weird letters in the mail from his neighbors saying that this is not allowed. Now, the interesting thing is that all the deed restrictions and CCNRs had expired.
Okay.
So they didn't have, in my opinion, I said they don't have any weight. I mean, you have to live next door to these people.
That is right.
So you have to consider that. But I don't think legally, well, I think there is a buffer in there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that's definitely true. If you're going to buy a house and you plan to modify it, that's part of your plan. You should find that out right away.
Look it up,
but before you even buy it, and you can go to the city and. Sorry, that is my dog,
Yeah.
and the church's dog, and so he, even though we're actually sitting in the church's sanctuary, he thinks he's free to do whatever he wants in here. So but you can go to the city before you buy a piece of property and find out what variances they'll give you. But you're right, how the neighbors will feel about you putting something in there, that might bother them. That's another good question to ask. It does not hurt also if you're going to buy a property, go talk to the neighbors. Now the realtor will help you do that and make introductions and find out what the neighbors are like. But neighbors change too, right? And so you never know, and things like that change all the time.
Yeah, you have to do your research. And if you do plan to modify your home, you definitely want to tell your realtor before you purchase the home. And also do your research. All those forms, like the deed restrictions and CCNR, they're at the city. You can find it there. You're going to have to review it, on signing day, but let's be real, you can't really read through all that stuff on signing day. So you want to go ahead and cover that stuff before you get too deep into it.
Yeah, I have bought and sold many houses over the years, and I will tell you, I don't read anything on the day I sign. I sign all those papers because it's way too much.
And you're a
to sign.
lawyer.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. So if I'm going to read all that, I'm going to read it way before I get around to signing it because it's like that thick.
It is. It's a novel, and unfortunately, a lot of the information you get day of. So.
Which is why you have a realtor. So that they help you get through all that paperwork, and you trust that they have, at least they can tell you you're signing standard forms, and that there should be nothing in there that surprises you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so what is a party wall?
Oh, party wall. So I asked her to ask me this because it was great. My first year of law school, I was there and I was in my real estate course and we had moved on to party walls. And so, I didn't want to look stupid. And so I didn't, first of all, in law school, you don't really ask questions, you get asked questions.
Okay.
And because it really is like the movie Paper Chase, which you probably know it was a movie that was popular when I was in law school about law school. But you get asked questions. It's done in a Socratic style. Mr. Perkins, can you please tell us what was in this case? And then you get asked questions the entire time. And so they started talking about party walls without ever explaining what they were. And your textbooks are not textbooks, they're merely cases. And so I sat there for like 3 weeks when we were talking about party walls. And I kept thinking, is a wall you have a party on top of?
Yeah.
And I was like, but what a party wall is a party wall is a wall that is between two pieces of property, meaning that the wall is shared by each piece of property, and therefore that each party has obligations to maintain, support it, and not tear it down and not in whatever. So that's called a party wall. And there is an entire body of law about who has obligations to maintain it, keep it up, and all that. So if you buy a house and there is a wall that's there
with attached homes, you see
with,
that?
Yeah, with attached homes, or and there is a wall between the houses, the house we're in, and on one side it's shiny and new, and their side's falling down, And so the question is, it's going to have to be fixed at some point, So think about that when you buy a house, is that, if those walls are in good shape and you need them kept up because you're going to have a dog or whatever else, think about, you're going to have to work with that neighbor and figure out who's going to maintain it. If it's on the property line, it doesn't necessarily belong to either property, and somebody has to figure out how to maintain those walls. And they're not inexpensive to keep them up, especially with bears and things that crawl in and around and over them, and especially if you have a pet, that's going to need to be contained in those walls. And so those are called party walls, and I didn't know that until I got to law school. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's really important when you do have those party walls to talk to the neighbor and look at that neighbor's house. If their side is falling down, they're likely not going to work with you when it's time to repair that party wall or even fence.
Right.
If you're sharing a fence.
Right, and you're just going to have to pay for it.
You're
just accept the fact that it's probably not going to be, it won't be a concern. On the other hand, if the neighbor's yard's impeccable, it's probably already fixed. But I'm sure they will then chip in with you and figure out how to get it fixed.
Yeah, party walls, and also something that comes up is roof repairs.
God.
When you have an attached home, I mean, you can sit there and you can fix your roof, but their roof that might be in bad shape will affect your home if there's a leak, or gutters. You have to work together on all of that too, and drainage, French drains, all that kind of stuff. So when you have attached homes, you really do want to meet your neighbor, take a look at their home, take a look at their yard, and take a look at their driveway, and go on a really rainy day and see what drainage looks like, because water is a big problem here in Juneau. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but you have to know how to deal with water. Where does it go? Here we go. Now we know what party walls are.
Yep.
Okay, so a question that I'm often asked is, what is escrow?
Oh, escrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so escrow is an interesting thing. Many people, if they bought a house or whatever, they're aware of it. Escrows can be used for things other than houses. And so an escrow is a convenient way to transfer money between parties that's done with a third party that is the one who decides when the money gets transferred. And when eBay and things like that were set up, they set up things that were like escrow. That's what PayPal originally started out with. It was a way to move money from two people that didn't trust each other. Okay. And so escrows was a way to handle it when people had to move money, because it's like, I'm going to hand you this stick and you're going to give me money, and how do we make sure that we do that without trusting each other? So escrow is a very ancient concept of how to do that, and we still use escrows today with very large sums of money. And so with houses, that's how we do it. We make sure that some third party does this, and it's typically a bank or a title company, and they take care of holding the money. And so when you buy a house, you put all the money in the escrow agent. they hold the money, and then they make sure the other party, and they're given very set instructions that when all these conditions occur and all these papers are signed, the title is cleared, then they're transfer the money from one party to the other. And and they get paid for this. You know, it's not an exorbitant sum of money, but they get paid a reasonable amount of money to do this. And so thankfully they're there, and they make sure that things go smoothly. And it's a good thing that they're there. You can use escrows for almost anything, and there are other things they're done to use escrows for. When I do a lot of M&A work, mergers and acquisitions work, and we use escrows to transfer money when we transfer the title of company or stock or things like that. So, but that's how eventually when eventually the house actually moves from you to somebody else or whatever else, it's done through an escrow agent with a title company.
Yeah, it's the third party that handles payment and delivery.
Right.
So that there are no hiccups. Well, I think we have got through all of our questions.
Probably more than you wanted to know, and probably more than confusing. Find a real lawyer in the state if you have problems.
Yes, you are a real lawyer. But there are plenty of lawyers out there that you can use to answer all of your questions and who can practice law for you. So I want to thank you so much, Brad, for coming on and giving us all of your, wisdom about real estate. And everything that goes with it. And we're about to hop on over to a property that is not quite on the market yet. This is my listing. It's on North Douglas Highway, 5255 North Douglas Highway, and 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Let's check it out. Hello, I'm Ericka Lee, and you are watching Juno's Open House. Boy, do I have a treat for you, because you're getting an exclusive viewing of a property that has not even hit the market yet, and it will be hot. This beautiful home is located at 5255 North Douglas Highway. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it's absolutely adorable. So we're gonna go in and check it out, and you're gonna check out the cutest gemstone of North Douglas. Let's go. So this home is really special because it has kind of a cabin feel. It's tucked away in the forest. It's on North Douglas Highway, but you have to travel way up to get to it. And you'll see that this has vaulted ceilings, or the Apex style ceilings. And as you look out, I don't know if you can see it right here on the recording, but you actually have a filtered water view of the channel. Really nice, very peaceful place. Nice large deck as well. So you have monitor heating there. The building is 784 square feet. So that monitor heating does heat the entire space. You also have a stove on the right-hand side, which you don't see, that you can put, wood in there, and it heats downstairs as well as upstairs. We have our kitchen there. Really nice kitchen for this size of a home. You're looking at the bar. You can tuck some bar stools under there. Could be your eating area. Nice lighting. Gas stove, always nice to cook on. Now, this house was built in 1982, and you're looking at tile flooring down there. It's been very well loved and taken care of. Nice high ceilings for this size of a home. Have a ceramic sink there. I like those. They're so cute. Almost farmhouse style. Double sink. Really nice big faucet. You can get your big pots under there. You have your window that looks out into the backyard. And we'll get a glimpse of the backyard. It's a very large backyard. So you have some additional storage under there. That's actually where the original refrigerator was located. It was a pretty small refrigerator. There you have the view of the living room from a different angle. Looks like we're going into the bathroom, which is downstairs. Got a sink, toilet, full-size tub. Beautiful wood paneling all throughout the house. What's nice is you have tiling all around this bathroom shower, and you have a window out to the backyard. And a lot of times when you have windows right above the bathtub, you know, it kind of impedes on your privacy. But with you having a backyard that's deep into the forest, there shouldn't be anybody looking in that window. So you do have that privacy and can enjoy that natural light. Nice huge mirror there. Nice for when the ladies are getting dressed. And we're heading on up the steps. You get a little glimpse of that stove that's over there, too. Okay, so this is the first bedroom. Head on in and you have a really nice view of the backyard. There's a creek in the back. You have a fire pit back there as well. Nice deck. Okay. So the two bedrooms are separated by the hallway and the staircase. You have some additional storage right there outside of the bedroom. And we're walking into the second bedroom. Now, one thing you can't really see, and I don't think we got a close-up of it, are the light fixtures. They are just so beautiful in this house, throughout, in the bedrooms, in the hallway, everywhere. Really beautiful light fixtures. Someone had good taste. Now, the part I love about this room, I'm not sure if we got a close-up of it or not, but right outside of that window, you have an amazing, oh, we're going there. We're going. Go check out that view. Because it looks right out onto the channel. So you have a beautiful water view without waterfront prices. This house will be going on the market next week for only $345,000. Two bedroom, one bath, built in 1982. and you have a lot size. I keep talking about that backyard, but the lot size is 45,476 square feet. It's huge, huge. I mean, you would need to check with the city, but you have space to add an additional dwelling back there if you want to. Tons of space to do whatever you like. Oh, there we are. We're in the backyard. So it's well equipped for a dog. Got some gardening happening back there. The last drop of snow is back there. And over there, I don't know if you could tell, but there's a cute little fire pit that's dug into the ground and surrounded by rocks. And although you have neighbors on either side, you have quite a bit of privacy because of the trees. An adorable cabin, really cute cabin. So there's the exclusive property this week. If you're a buyer, you know that it's nice to have a little heads up before the property hits the market. It's going on probably Thursday. It'll be live. Again, it's $345,000, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. If you want to see it, call me, Ericka Lee. My number is 907-713-4032, and I'll get you in there. Thanks for tuning in to Juno's Open House.